Welcome to PSA. If you're new here, my name is Felix. Please take a second and check out the welcome video. It has a little bit about our backstory. And if you're back, thank you for your continued support. I got a message from someone last week that it was kind of funny. They were stating that they normally don't like getting preached to, but that they really like what I'm doing here. If these videos can bring hope or some value to even one person, I feel like I've accomplished my job, so I want to thank you. I strive to be the dumbest person in every room that I enter. Luckily, that's really easy sometimes. But oftentimes, it will take books and lectures or podcasts. It takes a real effort to curate the content that I'm going to consume. So although you may be a brighter bulb than me, I won't cringe from your light. I much rather lean into it with the possibility of maybe learning something and the potential to see things a little bit clearer. So I look forward to your comments. With PSA, I hope to be that light for somebody as well, and that this video can be the oasis that may help replenish your spirit on your journey and the road ahead. Today I want to speak about working with what you have. I feel it's safe to say that you may have seen Kanye West conducting this event called Sunday Service. And since he also took it on the road or put it online, you may have attended it also. There was a lot of mixed emotions about his efforts from both the believers and the non-believer community. But my greatest takeaway from attending was that he was doing the best he could with what he had. His art, his clout, his feelings, his understanding of the scriptures. At times, is that not all we can do? Do the best with what we have? For the critics who wanted the old Kanye, I understand. Nostalgia is intoxicating and I rarely listen to anything new. But for the haters of the genre, you probably listen to a lot of gangster music, but yet you've never killed anyone. So if you don't believe in God, it's okay to listen to it even if you've never saved anyone. Some gospel music or some worship won't hurt you, and it might actually soften your edge. And if nothing else, it's a lot safer. Kanye reminded me a bit of one of the most famous stories in the scriptures, David versus Goliath. As a kid, I used to watch a claymation illustrate this story, but nowadays kids have like CGI and VR glasses. As an adult, I rediscovered the story in the scriptures. And although we could say it's one of the most played out stories, I find nuances every time I read it. And I wanted to share some of the thoughts I had in hopes of bringing you some value. Please excuse the paraphrasing because there's so much here. I urge you to read it yourself completely and read it often. So David came from a large family, but because of his gifts, he had access to the king. His first interactions with Saul the king was playing music because David was a talented musician. And one would think if you're able to play music at such a high level that you could soothe the king, you were definitely working in your calling. When Israel was preparing to fight a war against the Philistines, he was sent with bread and cheese to support the troops, and he headed right to the front lines to serve them fearlessly and humbly. So we see he's talented, he's humble, he's fearless, and he has a servant heart. The Philistines are taunting Israel, and David is confused by Israel ignoring God's promises and not charging. In this verse, we see a little bit of what David is working with. In 1 Samuel 17, 34 through 37, it says, "But David said to Saul, 'Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion and a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by the hair and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine.' And Saul said to David, 'Go, and the Lord be with you.'" Timing is everything in this story, but David has been preparing unknowingly for years. This is not luck. We do not get David's highlight reel without years of blood, sweat, and tears. and his brothers should have known better than to doubt him. David has an obvious history of rising up to the occasion and God showing up in his life. He knows he's made it through all of the past challenges for a reason. David not only goes into battle with what he has, but he leads into battle with his confidence in the Lord. His brothers, even after seeing his valor and being served by David, were still badgering him, saying, "Who's looking after those sheep you were supposed to be watching in the wilderness?" His brothers could only see him in the pasture, but God could see David in the palace. How common is it for someone to hold you to your lowest position? More often than not, it's just their insecurity speaking. But are you listening to the voices that are taunting you, or what God is saying about you? If you are not freed by your circle, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. Single person combat was a way to settle battles in those times by having two people fight each other and yielding the least amount of casualties. So both armies agreed and they would send one representative. Now, a person who's not perfect can be used, but beware of a person who you cannot trust. We can not be as good as the next person, but we can always be more trustworthy. King Saul, still in disbelief, offers him his armor, and it does not fit him properly. But don't let that slide by. This was not like Army-Navy armor. This was the king's own armor. It was almost as if the king was knighting him and stepping down with his own armor. Do not let someone's lack of confidence have you question your confidence. A king takes note of who steps up. 7 sons came before David, and David was the next one, number 8, who was chosen. Number 8 in the scriptures stands for a new beginning. David's brothers were sitting there witnessing him go from shepherd to king. My father used to say, "Lo que Dios ha puesto en tu camino, nadie te lo puede quitar." What God has placed in your path, no man can take it away. But do you have the patience of a David? Is there a king inside you just 7 tries away? Your growth is equally determined by what you believe about yourself as much as by what you believe about God. Goliath thought obviously David was at a disadvantage, but what seems to be your disadvantage can actually be your strength, especially in this story. David yells his battle cry, "In the name of the Lord," and he knocks him down, whipped with a stone from his slingshot, and then ends the battle by walking up and cutting Goliath's head off with his own sword. Might the weapons being used against you be the same ones that you will use for victory? I refer to this period in David's life kind of like he has an NDA with God. Have you ever signed an NDA? A non-disclosure agreement? What's in discussion in the NDA is so good that you can't even talk about it with anyone except who issued the NDA. So you are moving knowing something that others don't know. And when they look at you, they might be saying, "What is he thinking? He can't do that." But you have an NDA that is letting you know you need to get prepared. You need to get ready. You need to move like you've been there, because when the news release comes out, it's go time. David kept serving, kept writing, kept tending to the sheep before, during, and after winning the greatest battle of their times, even though he had a king's calling in him in the near future. Have you ever felt ready, but not in use? Or just overlooked, like a shepherd boy? Or maybe you're too old, or maybe you're too young, or because you ride a skateboard, or you're an artist, or you're an aspiring actor, a barista, a dreamer. I believe God can do more in the time that I have left than what I've done with the time that I've wasted. How about you? Might your NDA with God be the last thing that He spoke to you that you didn't act on? And here you are wondering why you haven't been knighted yet. Might it be as simple as David's answer to use exactly what you have in your own hands? Might your gift be exactly what you need for your battle? Don't reach for someone else's gift to fight your battle. When they asked David to battle with their armor, it would have brought him within the giant's reach, but David's gift was what he needed to fight from a distance and perfect for his battle. It is no accident that what makes you anxious is precisely what you're called to. Do not outsource your self-worth. That's a job you need to bring value to. Why would David be considered an underdog? Might we all consider ourselves a little bit of an underdog because we have little or no faith? As believers, we know when God is with us, who can be against us? We all hear this story from David's perspective, but have you ever thought about it from the giant's perspective? Goliath says, "Come to me." Don't all of our battles, our vices, our giants that we have to slay call us to come to them? The esteemed author Malcolm Gladwell had a great TED Talk identifying some of the scientific examples of what may have taken place in David and Goliath's story. He notes in those times, people of that stature had something called acromegaly. It's a form of giantism. It produces giants. In our times, we would probably refer to Andre the Giant. And one of the symptoms is that their brain would grow so big that it could affect their vision. It could cause nearsightedness or maybe even double vision. What does your giant see when he looks at you? What approach are you taking to slay them? What does your army look like? What does your preparation look like? Is God leading the way? Don't let your feelings of inadequacy respond where your potential should have answered the call. Cognitive dissonance does not have a place in a healthy community. Consistency does. In the story of David, we see his blood family diminish and marginalize a family member. So don't be surprised if some of your friends or your community does the same. It's a tragic human instinct to believe less of someone instead of believing so much greater for them that you elevate their performance and their potential. In all my years building brands and artist careers, I instilled such a personal belief and faith in them, it would not only impact them, it would affect how others viewed them. Little did I know, I was not just pulling the good out of them, I was reaching in to pull the God out of them. Your problems might also stem from you placing yourself above others, when in the scriptures it says to place others first. Could this be why people keep leaving your side? David believes that God is on his side, so he moves as such. What we're reading here is a symbiotic story, a relationship of someone and their maker. And I also believe that's why there's so many beautiful songs that he wrote in Psalms. I pray that haters become one-way elevators going up. And if someone has something negative to say, consider it true and improve. I won't spend any time letting it hurt me. I'll spend more time on becoming undeniable. Just know that they might have not liked the post, but they're still watching. I have nothing more for that, but what I do have something for is what's next. I'm in a perpetual state of personal development because I'm not dwelling on the past, I'm always preparing for the next. And the next doesn't happen in the past, next only takes place in the future. Some want to tell you that you're not, but God will tell you you are other. They wanted to tell David that he was less, but like David, I say, I'm not you, I am other. I am not how you see me, I am how he sees me, other. Don't move like those who want to hold you to less. Move like you are other. If someone tells you you are less, remember God has said you are more than a conqueror. As the greatest warrior in the land, David could have easily taken the throne from Saul, but David stuck to God's plan and he humbly went back to serving the sheep. The next chapters have some more wonderful stories about David's goodness, but we'll leave that for another time. This week, revisiting the story of David really hit me differently. The same God that rescued David from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear has rescued me as well. It reminded me that I had the privilege to work with some of the top artists and music and fashion and entertainment and skateboarding. And even though I've done even okay for myself, nothing brings me as much peace as sharing hope and some perspective that has helped me and that hopefully it could help you as well. Ego and arrogance is a false sense of power. The scriptures teach us that the meek will inherit the earth. So let's move humbly, full of confidence in God. And if you're reading the UIV version of the Bible, the Urban International Version, it's Godfidence. At the end of my life, I don't want the person who I am to meet the person who I could have been and be let down. How about you? Let's step into this week with humility and faith and confidence and ready to serve our friends and our family and our community, and watch how God will show up in your life. Until next week, let's love more, and I'll see you at the next PSA. Hey guys, I want to thank you for tuning in today, and I want to encourage you to check out some of the other videos, and if somebody comes to mind, please share it with them. We'd really love to grow this community, and I want to see what you have to say in the comments below. Thank you guys, and I'll see you at the next PSA.